Welcome to the High Impact Man podcast. High impact men from across the nation sharing their stories of inspiration, encouragement, and hope.
Gosh, seek transformational relationships.
What you're hearing from the culture is not right.
Pick up the six, you know what I mean? But you never know who your six sometimes is.
Stop being less.
To help others become the virtuous leaders they are called to be and that our nation desperately needs.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the High Impact Man podcast. This is D-Fib, joined as always by Dial-Up, and we have a special guest today. Before we get to our guest, his name is Curt Brewer, and I'll tell you an interesting way, the way I met Curt. But before that, Dial-Up, I got two trivia questions for you.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, what's the highest suicide rate in the U.S.? What age population?
Oh, I would probably say right now it's probably like men in their from like 18 to 29.
Actually, the highest suicide rate in the U.S. for any segment of population is men over 70 years old.
Over 70?
50% higher than the teen suicide rate.
Really?
That's according to the statistics our man Curt sent us. The other question is, what percentage do you think of retirees have a written plan for their future finances? What percentage? They're already retired. Do they have a written plan? How many?
25%.
Oh, that's closer. 35%.
35%. All right.
Yes, there's a lot more statistics we have because our guest today, Mr. Curt Brewer, is somebody who I met when I was with my family traveling we were hiking the Upper Two Medicine Trail in the Glacier National Park. And Curt, did you and your family, did you guys go all the way up to Upper Two Medicine Lake?
Yes. Yeah, we went up.
So you guys were on the way back.
We saw the falls. We went to the falls and we came back.
Oh,
down.
you went to, no, you didn't make it all the way up to the lake then. Okay.
No, we didn't.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Yeah, we went all the way to the lake, and I guess you guys were on the way back from the falls when we ran into you, and we're just walking along, and we stopped because there was an outhouse there to use, and the ladies had to use the bathroom. They were totally disgusted. Some of them declined, but anyway, that's sort of a little cross of the trail there. And Curt and his family and friends were there, and we started talking. I said, "Hey, I got a podcast." He's got a podcast called the Redirect Podcast. Hey, I got a podcast, and we started talking. I said, "I got to have you a guest on the podcast." So let me just give you a little more introduction here. Curt Brewer is the founder of Redirect You LLC and co-host of the Redirect Podcast. After a distinguished 32-year career in the sporting goods industry, Curt decided to leave his career in 2023 after a 3-year discernment process to pursue a new opportunity and begin his own redirection. In 2024, Curt felt the need to focus his next season of life toward helping individuals, particularly men, to better navigate the transition from long-term careers into life's next chapter. And we'll save the rest of that bio that he sent us for the bulk of the episode. But Curt, first of all, I want to thank you and welcome you to the podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And God works in mysterious ways. And our paths crossed in Montana. And Here we are. I'm in Cincinnati. You guys are in Danville, is it?
Yeah,
Danville, Pennsylvania.
Danville, Pennsylvania, which really kicked off the conversation when we met on the path, because we where are you guys from? You said, "Oh, I'm from Danville." And I said, "Oh, we used to live in Phoenixville outside of Philly." And then we had a connection. And then you had somebody in your party that just retired, as I recall.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan Lampkin, he's a retired Delta pilot.
Okay. Yeah. And somebody said, "Yeah, he just retired." I said, "Well, you got to listen to our podcast." And I think your daughter says, "Hey, he's got a podcast just like you, Dad." And here we are. This is crazy.
Here we are. And Curt and I talked for about 5 minutes on the trail. Our families were dragging us away. And so I got his number. He got my number. And here we are. So
here we are.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. And I think that, as we talked before we started recording, there's an awful lot of men out there from F3 that listen to us as a bulk of our audience. And a lot, I don't know, how many anymore, 800, 900, I don't know, something like that average. But we actually haven't seen any numbers in a while, but a lot of those guys are going to be within about 10 years of retirement or already retired or really close to it and thinking about it. So I think it's a really good topic to cover how you've process this whole thing. And we're going to get into that. And we'll talk about your podcast. We'll talk about, if I don't remember, make sure we talk about the 5 stages of retirement that you have listed down, and we'll just get into it. But first of all, Curt, we're going to learn a little bit more about you. So tell us where you grew up and how life was like for you growing up.
I grew up in Buffalo, New York. That's where I was born, and pretty much spent a majority of my life there through high school. I have 2 older brothers and a younger sister. Obviously, 2 parents. Both of them are deceased, and miss them dearly. Would love to have a phone call with them just to say hey. Lived in a suburban area. My dad was a sales rep for a window company, doing commercial window replacements and such. Provided for the family. As I tell people, I belong to a church down here where there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of challenges in life. I sit in small groups and I hear of addictions and I hear of divorce and I hear of, people losing life and all these things. And I sort of look back on my life and I lived in a bubble. I was a suburban kid. Mom and dad did everything they could to take care of us and they did a great job. And, went off to college. I ended up going to Bowling Green State University here in Ohio. Followed some friends from high school there and got into a schooling of education. I decided to, sort of an interesting story. I did do 1 year after high school at Buff State. And I, as a stupid freshman, first time in college, I said, hey, I think I'm going to go down a mathematics line. And why don't I take economics as an independent study? Now that's stupid, right? So here came the date where you had to sort of cancel or carry on with the class. And I canceled it. And I said, what am I going to do to replace the hours? And interestingly enough, my brother, who's closest to me in age, has some intellectual disabilities. And I said, boy, I want to figure out what makes Jeff work. So I took this class about educating the mentally handicapped. And as a result of that, it led to me going to Bowling Green State University and getting a bachelor's degree in special education, which then got me into a career working for a school program in Ohio, as well as an adult program in Ohio, and being their adapted phys ed instructor. So helping with fine motor, gross motor development, helping them understand their body, teaching them certain, aspects of crawling or mobility, fine motor skills and such. And through that, got involved with the Special Olympics. And
so what year was this now that you're involved in Special Olympics?
This would be 81. All 81. Right. So, okay. Yeah, I was volunteer.
So before you go any further, I apologize. Why don't you tell everybody how old you are? We probably should have started with that.
I'm 69 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. 69 years old. So, there's a lot of stuff in my past, and it's been a great career, been a great life. I've been very blessed. So that was back in the 80s. I was an area coordinator for Ohio Special Olympics. And while I was working in these 2 other facilities that I referenced earlier, of course, had teams and athletes from our programs that would participate in local games, county games, state games, and even international games. And then ended up getting a job with the Pennsylvania Special Olympics program, which facilitated our move out to Philadelphia area. We actually lived in Phoenixville and did that for about 5 years or so. And had a great experience with that. I was a games and training coordinator or manager for the program, and I basically, at the time, Special Olympics was coming out with all their associations of rules according to the governing bodies of sports. So they finally had a rule book because we found in Pennsylvania people bowled differently in Pittsburgh than they did in Philadelphia. So when you had a state event,
well, I got to hear this. How do you bowl differently?
Some people use bumpers, some people don't.
Oh, for the Special Olympics, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Okay.
And if they went over the foul line, that's okay. Johnny went over the foul line. So we had to sort of create rules to help everybody train properly and get themselves ready for the local games, area games, county games, whatever, and then going out of the states so that when we all got together, everybody know the rules. Yeah. So I had to go out and travel the whole Commonwealth and talk to a bunch of volunteers about what the rules are and help them to incorporate the proper rules into their programming so that we have great state events. And I did that for a great time. It was a great time. Winter games up in Shawnee, up in the Poconos.
Sure.
We had summer games at Penn State. We did some local regional stuff, soccer tournaments down at Villanova. And I was working with all the volunteers in order to coordinate all of those state events and such. And it was a great experience. And I enjoyed it much, but that sort of got me into the sports aspect of my life.
Let me ask you a quick question here. I've never known this. I mean, kind of know kids or people that have special needs, but how do you qualify as a Special Olympian?
Well, you have to have, I don't know. It's been so long, to be honest with you, all the rules and regs now. And I know that they've changed a lot of things. You have to have, we may have to edit this because I don't really know what their ramifications are now. And I don't want to say anything that could be
That's okay. I just
contradictory
want to see if
to what they
Dial-Up
did.
qualified when he was younger or not. But
Generally, it's like
maybe me.
The rule was like 2 standard deviations below the normal IQ level
Right.
gave you entry. But then you have people that have severe physical disabilities, but
Right.
mentally might be there. Okay, so you can incorporate them. But there was always, back when I was doing it, there were programs, schools that were set up for those with intellectual disabilities. And that was the population that then went on to the sporting events. Mainstreaming hadn't really come into play as it is now. So I'm out of touch with what's happening recently with Special Olympics, but I know that they've expanded their coverage and they've got more and more people involved, and they're doing more of an effort to getting the Special Olympian engaged with the, other populations so that there's a mainstream of players in different levels of sport.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you for that.
The state games in State College were a huge event every year.
Oh yeah.
I lived in the shadow of Happy Valley. And so a lot of the kids from my high school and surrounding high schools would volunteer and go up and work the days of the events up there.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking when you bring in like 1,200 athletes and you got to do housing and meals and medical and facilities. And then, of course, all the events, not only sporting events, but all the social events that go on as well that everybody expects and is a part of just getting the Special Olympic fever and feeling together that you're all there together and having a great time. And it's a great program. It's a great program. So I did that. And I was a young, arrogant individual where I sort of thought I should move up a little bit in the company in that particular chapter, and that didn't work out. So they told me I had 6 months to find something else. So unfortunately, it was the only time in my life that I was asked to leave a place, and that's my fault. It was a young kid, but as a result of that, I got into sales. I ended up going down to the Atlanta Super Show, which was a huge show that they used to have back in the day with all of the major sporting goods, athletic specialty retailers in the country would go to. And that's where all the companies would show all their new product lines and get people to sign up and order product. And I went down there and interviewed with 10 different companies to see if I could become a sales rep for them or work with them in some capacity. And just so happened, I met a person that was from that it was a Reebok agency in Philadelphia, believe it or not, because I was expecting that I'd have to move someplace. Lo and behold, I find something right in my back door. One of their ladies in the office was going on maternity leave and she handled promotions. So they asked me to come on board and I became their promotion person and worked with all the reps that were working with the retailers. And we created events to help drive sales and such for, Reebok purchases and various games and activities and radio promotions and all that stuff. And so that got me into this world of sporting goods where I was with Reebok for, oh my gosh, it was about 8 years. And started there as just a promotions person, as I said. Then I elevated up to sales rep, where I called on accounts in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, southern Jersey, and I even went down to Maryland to a degree. And then I got an opportunity to move to Pittsburgh because Dick's Sporting Goods was.
When you were in Philly, is that when you were involved with the Phillies and the Eagles?
Yes. Well, I was working for Reebok at the time, and they needed the people that handled our sports marketing group up in the Boston area for where Reebok was Stoughton, Mass, which is where their corporate headquarters were. They wanted to have people locally that they could help support the sports marketing effort that the company was doing with various teams. So I got to know the sports marketing guy, who one of them happened to be Don Hasselback. I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Well, is he
He
related to the quarterbacks?
Yeah, he's the dad. He's the dad.
Okay.
Don was a great guy. He played in the NFL for a number of years, won a Super Bowl with the Raiders, and I believe he finished his career with the New York Giants. Don has since passed. He passed in 24, I believe, and that was a sudden passing of him. Great guy, and I helped him on out. He said, "Hey, Curt, would you mind running on in and checking out with the coaches and the players and seeing how they're doing? We're going to send you a bunch of stuff and." Go on in there around Christmas time, get a list, and we can send them stuff, all the things that the Reebok athletes would get. That's how they would take care of them. And it was a fun time. I mean, I remember the first time I walked in and met Rich Kotite, the coach for the
Eagles coach. Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles. And I happened to be on I-95, and there was a little bit of a traffic delay. So I was running a little bit behind. And so then I go walking in, and I had samples for him to take a look at and things to talk about. And he comes on and puts his glasses down on his nose and has a cigar going. He goes like, "Curt, this is the NFL and we have to be on time. Otherwise, we just don't do things with people." And I'm like, "Gotcha, coach. Not a problem. Let's get busy." So worked with him, got to know Andre Waters, got to know Jim Williams, who was their strength coach. And it was just sort of a fun time to be in the locker room with them. Also did the same thing with the Phillies.
I got to ask you, what was Andre Waters like? Because he seemed like a mean dude on the field.
He's an interesting guy. And here again, a guy that his passed very early in his life. He passed away at age 44 from CTE. But he was an interesting dude. We had an event at this one account in Philadelphia, and I was there to pick him on up and take him to the event. Have him, obviously he's going to be wearing Reebok stuff, warm ups and pants and shorts shoes, and sign some autographs. So I show on up there, and there he is. He's playing, video games, I think with Jerome Brown. And I look at him and I'm like, "Andre," I say, "You ready to go?" And he stands up and he's got, an Adidas shirt on, and he's got some, FUBU shorts, and he's wearing some slides. And I'm like, "You're not wearing Reebok gear." And he says, "Come on, Reebok, man. I know you got stuff." And I said, "Oh, I'll be right back." Gave him a pair of shoes and a warm up and all this stuff. And then he puts his t-shirt on. And I said, "What's that t-shirt?" He goes, "This is a t-shirt that I've been wearing since I've been in high school." And it was tattered. It was all ripped up. And he wears that. He wore that every time he played in the NFL from high school.
Wow.
And he's just an interesting guy. And he knew it. He knows the game. And I gave him some stuff, and we showed up at the account, and it worked out just fine. But he was my, an aspect of a guy that he knew how to play the game. And fortunately, I had some stuff there to make sure that he looked like a Reebok guy when he showed up. But it was fun.
Unfortunately, he passed early, like you said, from traumatic brain injury. But he led with his head. That guy was a missile out there at safety.
Yeah,
Okay.
he got after it. There's no doubt about it. And I did some things with the Phillies as well. In 1993, when they went to the World Series against Toronto, that was a fun year. It was a fun year. I mean, I'd walk in there and there's, Macho Rowe, sitting right there with Incaviglia and Dykstra and,
Dalton, Kruk.
Dalton, Kruk. Yeah, Kruk had his own lazy boy sitting in there.
Of course he
did. Fun place. Yeah, fun place. And, here the guys are in meetings, and there's Danny Jackson. He comes walking up to me. He was a pitcher for the Phillies in cycle, and he was a cool dude. And he jumps on one of those travel trailers that their trunks that they have, right, that holds all their equipment. And he's got his, sitting on his hands, and he's sort of kicking his heels against the trunk. And he says, "Hey, Reebok guy," he says, "You got a name?" And I said, "Yeah, my name's Curt." He says, "Well, I'm Danny Jackson." I said, "I know." He says, "So, you live around here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "How about you?" He says, "I live on the other side of the river, and I just commute back and forth." I said, "Where's your family?" And they're like, "Oh, they're in Kansas City." And I'm like, "Well, that stinks." And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "My life's pretty just round baseball. I come to the stadium, I work out, go to games, pitch every now and then. He says, do you like to play golf? I said, sure. And he goes, well, you want to play golf this week? And I'm like, great. I said, can I bring a buyer with me so that we can sort of do a little perk for me? He says, yeah, no problem. So we ended up playing golf. And needless to say, he is just a gentleman. And it was just so fun to see a guy like that has played for so many teams, just to say, I just need a friend. I just need someone to hang out with, because I don't pitch for another 5 days and it's sort of boring and my family's not around. And I'm like, Danny, anytime you want to play golf, let's get together.
Was he any good?
He was good. Yeah. He told a story that he used to go out and play with him and Mitch Williams.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, wild thing, right? and he said Mitch used to get so mad with everybody because they're hitting the balls right down the middle of the fairway and they're doing all these wonderful shots. And here Mitch is in the sand trap. And he's
wait, you're saying Mitch was wild? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he was wild all over the place.
The wild thing was wild.
Exactly.
D-Fib, do you still remember where you were whenever Carter hit the home run to finish the World Series off?
I don't remember where. I think I was just home, but that year I went to Game 6 when they clinched the pennant against the Braves at the Vet.
Nice. Okay.
Robin and I don't think we were married yet, and I went with a good buddy of mine who's a huge Phillies fan and his fiance. Yeah. And it was a night game, and we had to park and walk into the stadium. We're walking in at night. The Budweiser blimp is over the Vet. The Vet is already super loud. The Fanatic is in there getting the crowd jazzed up. And we sat in the right field, first level, 200 level in right field. And Mitch, what was his name? Not Mitch. The second baseman, Morandini.
Yeah, Mickey Morandini.
He hit a home run in the right field, just not too far from where we were sitting. But it was great because the Phillies fans were doing the mock chop. So, the Braves, they do the Well, the Phillies fans were not in sync. Arms were going all over the place. This is like 60-some thousand people. And they were saying, go home. And it was great. It was great. And then they went on to blow it. Yeah, Carter hit the home run.
As soon as they brought in Mitch, we knew it was.
Yeah, it was always a roll of the dice, wasn't it?
Speaking of that Atlanta game, was that the game that Schilling pitched that you were at?
Probably.
I was at the same game. I was at the same game. So here again, we were in the same place, but we didn't even know it.
Yeah, and you know what? I was told, because I wasn't watching on TV, obviously, but the Phillies fans were getting the reputation the Phillies fans have, and I guess the Atlanta fans were getting on them, I guess, or somebody was talking about how uncouth they are, and so they had the conductor for the Philadelphia Philharmonic leaning out a window with a tuxedo on with a baton, leading everybody and take me out to the ball game at the 7th inning stretch. And so I'm told, as he's leaning out and swinging his arms and waving the baton, some guy reaches down from the upper deck and grabs the baton and steals it out of his hand in the middle of the song. So, Phillies fans are awesome.
It was a fun sports town, no doubt about it. We enjoyed our time there. We were there for, as I said, 10 years and had a good time there. So it was sort of, getting my feet wet in the footwear industry with Reebok at the time. And as I was saying, I was fortunate to receive an opportunity to work with Dick's Sporting Goods. And this is when they just relocated from Binghamton, New York down to Pittsburgh. So at the time that I joined them, Dick's Sporting Goods was only 25 stores.
Wow.
Yeah. And now they're over 780 and they have a national presence. And
one thing we got to mention, though, before you go on is if Dial-Up gets this on video, people are going to see these huge sneakers behind you, which you showed us beforehand. You show everybody these Reebok pumps.
I spotted these over his shoulder. I'm like, is that a pair of Reebok pumps?
Yeah. Yep. Still is. Still works.
The younger generation has no idea what those are. But
they don't know what the pumps are. But
this was a technology. This was a technology that Reebok came out with that was revolutionary. And basically what the pump was that there's a bladder on the inside of the tongue that wraps around the top of the foot. So you could create a customized fit. So you'd be pressing the ball here in order to create the bladder to inflate, which then surrounded your foot in the shoe, sort of serving like a tape job. This particular model happened to be the Shaq shoe. When Reebok was the company that signed Shaq right out of LSU. And so he went to play for the Orlando Magic. And this was the first Shaq shoe that came on out. Obviously, it was a huge success. Really put us on the map as far as Reebok as a company getting into the basketball category, because a couple of years prior to this, Reebok actually beat Nike for the first time and has been the only company to ever surpass Nike in sales. And that was because of the women's movement that happened out west. If you well recall Jane Fonda doing aerobics, well, you had Reebok out there with the Princess and freestyle and all that stuff. But this was getting into the sports world. And one of the sales meetings we had with Reebok is they announced Shaq. And we were all there, and we did a harbor trip. We got into a boat and went into the Boston Harbor for an evening of eating and dancing and some libations. And it was so interesting to watch Shaq walk through this boat that he had to bend down, and he's taking out lights as he walks because he was so close to the ceiling. Wow. He had a girlfriend at the time that came with him, and he used to pick her up and give her a kiss, which we all thought was funny. And I hate the B-52 song Love Shack because they must have played it about 500 times that night.
Yeah, but that Shaq's shoe is so big you probably could have sat in that and floated in the harbor. What size shoe is that?
It's size 24.
Size 24.
Yeah.
Shaq.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Really cool. Really cool. Yeah. So
dial up in the outro. You got to play Love Shack in this episode, okay?
Oh, I don't know what to do that. Yeah. Probably copyrighted, but
all right. Well, there's a lot of free stuff out there too.
Yeah.
All right. So you're at
Dick's.
Let
me see. So we're at Dick's Sporting Goods and working with them with Reebok, and had a great time. A lot of expansion. Real good time there. So that sort of led into a number of things that I got involved with Dick's Sporting Goods with other companies. I joined this one company that was based in California. It's called JR286. They're outside of LA in Torrance. And they are a company that works with major brands and designs, manufactures, and distributes sports equipment product, accessories. So anything, not necessarily footwear or apparel related, but balls, gloves, wristbands, headbands, bags. And joined up with them to cover the Under Armour brand, which was fun. And again, working with Dick's Sporting Goods, some time had passed. Obviously, they'd done a huge expansion within their door count. And Under Armour at this time was just emerging as a popular brand. It really started to take off. And it was hockey stick growth. It was amazing. Anything that had a UA on it was being gobbled up like there was no tomorrow. And I remember one meeting we had that the management team at Dick's Sporting Goods got all of the buyers together, all the divisionals together, and we all got in one big room, and we were up there from JR286 showing all of the accessory items that we offer as a company, as well as what the assortments were for Dick's Sporting Goods. And the GMM for Dick's Sporting Goods was calling out each of the buyers and saying, okay, headbands. How many colors do we offer? And they're like, we got 4. What colors? White, black, blue, and red. She goes, well, I see 12 colors. How come we don't do 12? And well, we're going to do 12. We sat there and worked with all these buyers for about 3 hours and walked out of there with $1 million order.
Wow.
And it was the biggest sales experience that I've ever been a part of. It was amazing about the power of a brand, as well as a retailer wanting to get behind you to help promote, as well as to try to, have an offering that was just so extensive that the consumer was just overwhelmed. And it was, we walked out of there. We had the CEO of the company, my sales manager, myself, as well as an inventory management person, so he could check inventories as we went through items. And it was $1 million day. And that was an unbelievable sales story there.
All right. So how old are you at this point?
Oh my gosh. I am in my 40s.
All right. Yeah. And then you went on to work for, it looks like Delta Apparel Sales and then Nike.
Apparel. Yeah. Delta Apparel. I switched over. I left JR286 and went with Delta Apparel and represented the Sophie brand. I don't know if any of you have young gals, but cheerleading shorts, it's the one that folds over the waistband. They're a cotton short. It's called the Sophie short. They're very, very popular with high school cheerleading teams and such as workout shorts. So they needed a guy that worked with Dick's Sporting Goods. So I was the guy in Pittsburgh, went in there, worked with the apparel team and got them going. And we started to place Sophie at Dick's Sporting Goods throughout the chain, which it's still offered there today as well.
How'd you get
We
involved
tried to
with
do
Nike? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nike. Yeah. Nike. How Nike came about is that I ended up leaving Sophie and did something on my own for a little bit with two other guys called Sustainable Mission Partners, where we were trying to sell products that nonprofits were generating in order to help them become more sustainable. So I did that for about 2 years, and it got to a point where it was a great program and had some opportunities, but it wasn't sustaining for myself. So I jumped back, I called back to JR286 and asked them if I could return to the company. At that time, they had transitioned over from Under Armour, and they were now repping or being the global licensee to Nike. And they brought me back on board because they needed somebody. The person that was managing the Dick's account was no longer there. So I jumped on in and then started working the Nike brand. And that was a delight. I had the opportunity to work with a tremendous company of Nike, been to their corporate headquarters, the campus, as we call it, up in Beaverton, Oregon. And if any of you ever get on out to Oregon and you want to see something, if you're a big sports fanatic, you can contact Nike and they do tours. And I strongly recommend it to walk around that campus and to see these buildings that are named after athletes, and to walk down this one area where their old administration building is, and you see busts of all the players of various sports that were Nike athletes for the history of Nike. Just an incredible atmosphere, an incredible place, tremendous stories of athletes coming to the campus, and when they name a building after them, they have a special event. Everybody comes on out. They're there. They play games. They do stuff. Great time. And just watching the Nike machine do what they do was such a pleasure to be a part of. And what was so great about that is that even though we as accessory providers that we would design and manufacture and then distribute to Nike accounts, I would work with the Nike Dick's team in Pittsburgh who handled all the apparel and footwear. And then we integrated with them in order to make a holistic presentation to the Dick's Sporting Goods account that covered Nike from head to toe. And, learned a lot from management on both sides, Dick's Sporting Goods and Nike. And great experience, wonderful experience, a lot of fun.
Yes,
And,
it sounds like you were really enjoying your career.
And, it was.
And then you get to the point where you've decided that God placed a desire in your heart to step out of your comfort zone and do something different.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I got to know the Lord as sort of, I call it as sort of, I made it my own. I grew up as Catholic. I have all the sacraments except for last rites, and I won't be getting those. But it's amazing that in the 40s, my wife worked so hard in trying to get me to lead Bible studies, go to Bible studies, lead devotions at home, be that leader in the family, and I didn't when I was younger. It took a village in order to get me going. My wife tried and tried and tried, and then she got to the point and she said, I can't do it anymore. I got to leave it up to the Holy Spirit to change his heart. And then all of a sudden, the heart started to open up, and the Holy Spirit entered, and I got to meet some people that were very impactful in my life to understand that there's something bigger than me. And one is Cliff Swanson and his wife, Melinda, were great Christian people. He was a pastor, and so we had many great conversations, and he sort of asked me a lot of questions to get me thinking. And then I met another gentleman, Gene Sherman, and his wife, Kim, And he was a big fan of the White Horse Tavern. Are you familiar with that over in England, where people used to get together and just have conversations about faith and religion and all this stuff? And so his family was similar in age to our family as far as the kids. And we both like sports. He used to coach, and then he became a pastor for a Episcopalian church in the town that I lived in. And he would say, "Come on over." And so we'd go over and sit on his deck and we'd have a beer. And then he'd start asking me questions about where I am in my faith. And then I'd start asking questions to him. I don't understand this and I don't understand that. And his basic answer is, I'm smiling now. He's smiling at me. He says, "Well, Curt, God is sovereign. God is sovereign."
Yeah.
And he helped me to realize that, that, that Jesus is an incredible part of our lives, and what he did and his sacrifice for us so that we have the ability to have a relationship with God, and got through God's grace and mercy, we have the opportunity to have life eternal, and understanding all of the things that Christ has taught and has shown for us and lived in this world as a human, as well as 100% divine, is just, it came into me. And, so it was one of those things that, just like a lot of things with me, I'm a work in progress. But that faith and understanding that there's something bigger than me and that I'm not in control of anything, was a big decision maker as far as me leaving my career. I did enjoy what I did. I had two people that worked with me. I was their manager, and they were managing the day to day, and I was sort of doing the strategic stuff. And I got this feeling that there's something more that I needed to be doing. I've been doing this sporting goods thing for such a long time that maybe it's time to move on. And so I started thinking about, what does that look like? And what am I going to do with it? Yes, some things changed at how I did work. I wasn't involved in being that guy that was doing it. I was enabling others and giving others the ability to show their strengths and their knowledge and their abilities. But I was that guy in the background to say, I like how you did that. Let's talk about it. Let's get better. Let's refine it. Let's think about, this could be a blip coming down the road, and sort of helping them guide themselves. But the two people that I worked with, or actually I worked with a total of three. We had a couple people change in and out. Great individuals, very smart. They took the business to a whole other level that I couldn't have done. And it was such a pleasure. And so here I get on this point. It's right around COVID. That, I was thinking of leaving before COVID, but then COVID hit, and I'm like, well, let's try this and see how this worked. And then went through the COVID thing, moved during COVID, lived in Pittsburgh area for 27 years. And then we decided to move to Cincinnati, where my middle son lives, and got together there. Plus my wife has extended family here. So we're moving back to family, which is the first time in our life. And then got to this point, like, maybe I need to pursue this retirement thing. So I went online and started researching retirement.
How old are you at this point?
I am, let me see, I retired at 66 and a half. So that was 3 years prior to that. So I was 63.
All right. So 63, you start thinking about it.
Yeah. So I started thinking about it, and then things started going together, and I'm thinking, what should I do? I'm in a great spot. I like my job. The people like me. We're making growth every year. I'm making good money. Why do I want to leave that? And, but I said, there's just something else out there. So as I said, I started researching more and more about retirement. And every time I went online, all I could find was financial stuff. How are your investments and your taxes? And then there's healthcare. And I'm like, but what about the person? What am I going to do on a Monday when I say goodbye on a Friday, and I don't have any Zoom calls? I don't have any business trips, scheduled for the next, 4 months. I'm not on the phone. I'm not doing emails. What am I going to do that first day? And I said, there wasn't anything out there to talk about, what is my identity going to become? What is my family? What are their expectations of me as I'm now done with work? We don't have any grandkids, but if there were, that probably would have been coming into the mix. Oh, you can help with the kids. And then there's things about what am I going to do with my community? I lived 27 years in Pittsburgh. I'm in a brand new city of Cincinnati. I got nobody. How am I going to get on out and meet new people? Being a remote salesperson like I was and in sales management, all my people that I worked with were either in Pittsburgh or in LA, or other, peers were in other parts of the country. So it's not like we can meet by the water cooler all the time. You got to be deliberate and make phone calls. And what's really interesting is after you leave, the phone doesn't ring as much.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't take long for people to, I don't want to say forget you, but they kind of forget you, right? Because they got to move on. They got to keep doing the work.
Well, and here I'll throw it right back at you. What do you have in common anymore?
Right.
Because you used to talk about work all the time. Well, half of us doesn't talk about work, and nor do I want to.
Well, now was it more challenging for you? You kind of said it, but you didn't you weren't proximate to the people you were working with. You didn't see them physically every day and hang out with them and talk to them.
Correct.
So you wouldn't interact with them unless it was work related. And so dial-up, I think that's a negative, one of the many negative things about working from home and, that kind of stuff, working remotely. Yeah. My job, I work in a hospital and I have to show up. We're there. We do surgery and stuff like that. So I know the people I work with at a personal level.
Right.
I know who their spouses are. I know who their kids are. I know what they're going through. I know what vacation they went on. I got to believe that what you're talking about now has probably become more difficult since COVID, because so many more people are working from home and they're not meeting other people at work.
Yeah. You definitely have to be more intentional in having those conversations with folks and catching up with what's going on in their lives outside of work, because it's just, you don't have that, like you said, meeting at the water cooler where, you're not talking work related stuff and you're just talking about life. Like when you're working remote, you tend to kind of be doing your own thing until you hop on a Zoom call, and the Zoom call's a meeting, right? With a purpose, right? With an agenda to accomplish a given task. And so, unless you kind of are taking some time outside of that to interact with your colleagues, you'll lose that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're unlucky enough that you don't have F3, because Dial-Up and I we're involved with an F3, as we talked about before before we started recording, because we have that friend group. And you gave the statistic of, what was it? All the guys out there in F3 heard this a lot, but the average person today has 1.5 friends compared to 3 a decade ago. So, and I think that's part of it, not being proximate and being remote from everybody. If I were to retire tomorrow, I still have my F3 group, my guys to hang out with. Now, they're not available during the day because I try to get them to go golf with me when I'm off during the day, but nobody's available because they're all working.
We talked about that last week when you said, does anybody want to go see the Odyssey on Thursday afternoon or whatever it was? And we're like, he knows the rest of us work, right? Like, he always at the last minute, like, anybody want to go golf Friday at noon?
Yeah. Take a shot. You never know.
11? No, we can't.
No, am I not important enough to take a vacation day for?
It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot.
Yeah, it was worth a shot.
Yeah.
But I could see that making this whole issue even more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's so during this process of realizing and sort of thinking that there's something else ahead of me at the company, we did this thing for a year about reinventing ourselves. And I used to talk to my wife about it. I got to do this thing about reinventing. And she goes, Curt, it's not about reinventing. It's about redirecting. And I'm like, ooh, I like that. So I grabbed onto that. She created it, grabbed onto it and said, let's see what I can redirect my life to be. And I don't like the word retirement. If you think about the word retirement and how it's used, I'm going to retire your jersey. It's not used anymore, is it? I'm going to retire for the evening. I'm going to bed. Okay. It's a withdrawal. It's a pull back from. It's no longer engaging. You are retiring, the car. I'm retiring my car. I'm getting rid of it. I don't like that word retirement. I don't see myself as a retiree. I see myself as redirecting myself to something new. we all know things in life that we're involved with. When you're younger, you got to get good grades so you can go into college. And then when you get into college, you still got to get good grades and graduate well so you can get a good job. And then after the job, you get married. Maybe you choose not to, but generally when I grew up, that was sort of the generational thing you did, right? You got married, then you get a house, and then you get a kids, and then you start to develop in your career where you're getting promotions and you're getting more money. And then all of a sudden your kids, you got to send them off to college. And then after they're done with college, you're helping launch them and getting them out there. And now it's you and your wife, and you have the opportunity to really build wealth. So now I'm just building wealth and I'm going on. And then comes retirement. Now that's the American dream. And you talk to any generation right now, that's it. You're going to start out here and you're going to end up at retirement. How come there isn't anything after retirement? Why isn't there? What's the next chapter look like? What's your next 30 looking like? What are you going to do tomorrow that's different than today? And so using this American dream thing, which again uses the word retirement, and we talk about retirement all the time on the Redirect podcast because that's the phrase that everybody uses. But I don't like to identify myself as retired. I always say I left my career.
I heard you guys. I listened to your first episode, and you said that, and the immediate thing I thought of was commencement, because they tell us when we graduate from high school, it's called commencement because you're ending one chapter, but you're commencing the next chapter.
Right.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Maybe we should call it, I don't know, elder commencement or something.
Well, good luck. You'll have a tough time with AARP and Social Security because retirement is in their lingo all the time. But it's like, it just has this little, to me, it has this little to it to like you're done. Yeah. And I remember watching, Ted Danson. He did this show on Netflix that was called The Inside Man, where he was based on a true story. He was a gentleman that worked for a private investigator that went into a senior living facility because they were having thefts. So he was dealing with a whole senior living environment. And he did this show, and they threw out little facts every episode about, being older and living in a senior living facility and things of that nature. And I saw him in an interview on CBS Sunday Morning. And he says, I was at a point where I was done. I had a great career, Cheers, movies and all this stuff, made a lot of money, doing well. And he's like, so maybe I think I'm just gonna land the plane. And then he said, then I met Jane Fonda, who was getting arrested when she was 80 years old. And I was with her. And he says, why am I landing the plane when I should just be going to the tarmac, going up to the gate, pulling in more people, and then we fly off to the next destination? And now if you watch him, he is a big advocate about staying moving. Continue to move. Look at Dick Van Dyke. Continue to move. Continue to get yourself out there and do things. Your life is not over by any means. And there's, if you look back generationally, our parents, they worked as hard as they could do to retire. And then there they were. I'm going to go fish. I'm going to sit in the backyard. And some people didn't handle that too well. How many people have you heard that after 6 months being out of their career, they're in the hospital or they passed? They worked so hard to make all this money, and then they never had a chance to use it because they didn't know what to do. And guys, especially, that's what I love about this Redirect podcast. Our focus is guys. We don't really talk much. We're not as vulnerable as we could be. Women have it figured out. They have a nice social circle that they can talk about things to one another, and they can support one another, and they can be available to one another, and they can help one another. Guys, well, what did you do? I was an engineer. How long did you work? I did 40 years. What are you doing now? Well, I'm going to go to the Bengals game. And what's the weather looking like today? I think it's going to rain a little bit. That's the conversation with guys. It's what we did, what sports we like, and what the weather is. And we don't talk about these things that's what we're finding, that guys just don't talk about the things that are out there that they all have questions about, but they just don't talk about it. So we did a podcast on mortality and legacy. It's 100% proven we're all going to die. Are you ready for that? I know we don't want to talk about it. Nobody likes to talk about dying, but guess what? It's going to happen.
Yep.
Nobody wants to talk about leaving my career, but it's going to happen. Either you choose to, or someone's going to make a choice for you. Somebody's going to say, a person doesn't want to move out of their house when they get older to go into a senior living facility. But then sometimes it happens because they can't live by themselves. So if you wait to that point where a decision is being made for you and you can't make the decision, that's when the arguments come into place.
Yeah.
So be proactive. Let's talk about all the things that get in our way, about how am I going to get more in tune with, since I don't have a community anymore because of my work is no longer there, where am I going to find community? So what I did when I first moved here to Cincinnati, I went to our church. They happened to have a small group seminar, and I walked to a number of booths and said, tell me about your small group. Well, we have a Thursday morning Bible study. Great. I'm coming. Well, we have a Mighty Men organization that we do where we go out in the community and we work with people and delivering beds to people that don't have beds. Great. I'm going to be a part of that. And as a result of me stepping out of my little comfort zone that I said was so comfortable, making good money, everybody liked me, we got business done, and now I'm jumping on out and I have to find a new comfort zone. I have to find a new network.
So let me ask you a couple questions here. So first of all, I think that a lot of stuff you're talking about is not just finding something to do, but finding something where you still have value, where you matter, where you have purpose.
Right.
So, I mean, how many guys, and I don't know how many guys you talk to who have been through this. I mean, your podcast is about this. So, how many guys, as you said, get to retirement, all of a sudden they're retired and they have no purpose anymore, and they don't feel like they're an asset to their community anymore?
First of all, everybody has purpose, and that's a part of the thing. Somebody might say, I don't have purpose, but you do. There are big P's and there's little P's. If the big P's are, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to create a new product and I'm going to make millions of dollars, and I'm going to just beat this big P. Or I'm going to go out and try to solve a big problem that's out there, like a nonprofits like to do, that we want to make a difference so big. All right. Those are big P's. But then there's a little P that I want to be the best grandfather I can be. I want to be the best husband I can be. I want to be the best parent I can be to my adult children. And what does that look like? I want to be able to help my neighbor across the street. I want to be able to, if I still want to get a part-time gig in order to make some money to go on a vacation or to play golf, great. But what's great about this is that now you have the freedom to determine what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you can follow things that interest you and that excite you, and it can lead to something else. So the one thing, that the worst thing in the world is that you can just sit on your butt and then stream Netflix all day
I think
long.
a lot of guys have difficulty with retirement because when they go to work, they get affirmed, right? They get that affirmation at work. You're doing a good job, well done. Here's what you got to improve on. They get immediate feedback, that kind of thing. All of a sudden you're retired, and where are you going to find that affirmation from now? Because you're supposed to be a good husband, a good dad, a good neighbor, all this stuff, even while you're working. So now, what do you think about that? I think a lot of guys deal with that when they retire.
That is true. I mean, you have to think about guys, and again, I don't want to be super generalistic. I'm going to talk about myself, right? Calendars, KPIs. We're always driven to be doing things that are going for the greater good of the company or the service or whatever that we're doing. Yes, there's affirmation, rep of the year. You get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Well done. You get a bonus at the end of the year. Outstanding. Those are all those, affirmations that are material, that are out there to make you know that you have worth and you're doing something. But I lost my thought. The aspect of us having such a structured life and being a provider is sometimes detrimental to this time because, as you said, what is my value? We did an episode about, do I matter?
Yeah.
And an exercise that the psychologists that we worked with who asked us to do this, which we did in preparation for the podcast and talk about it, was that we went to each of our kids and said, do I matter to you? What's my value to you? And just stopped. The things that I heard specifically from my boys it was overwhelming. It made me feel good.
Mhm.
And it affirmed to me that I was a good dad. It was affirmed that they loved me. They appreciated me. And I think everybody needs to do that to understand that there's other things that can feed you and give you the encouragement you need other than the to-do list or the accomplishments or the bumps in salary and the title raises and all those things that you do miss because that's what you've been doing for 40 years.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Does
think
that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. Perfect sense. I think it's a change of mindset. It's a redirect, right?
No doubt.
Because I just look at myself. I work in cardiac surgery. I mean, I'm working to help people, but I literally save people's lives sometimes, or just make them, make their life better, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of professional and personal satisfaction with doing that work. And I can see how leaving something like that would be problematic. Now, I don't think I'll have a problem doing that. When I do, I don't think so, because I've made a list of things that I could get involved with. Almost all of them are voluntary stuff. In fact, they're all voluntary stuff. I can't do all of them. I got to figure it out. And who knows, the list might get bigger before I retire, but I think you got to have change. It has to be just a change of mindset, because um, even though maybe I'm not running a code and somebody who has cardiac arrest anymore, I might be mentoring a young man or a young person through our church, or something like that, and how that could branch off, right? You disciple somebody as a Christian. If I disciple somebody, they come to the Lord. How many people will they then disciple? And
Right.
so I think it's a change of mindset of how we look at things, because we ascribe value to things even unconsciously. I think we just kind of ascribe value to certain things, and we may not be getting the values exactly right. We have to kind of change our mindset.
Yeah, to go along with that though, too, defib, like you go to work and it's prescribed for you what you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? These are my tasks that I need to accomplish today. You
Right.
don't have to think about it necessarily. You are
Yeah.
like, how am I going to care for this patient, right? How am I going to harvest this vein, whatever it might be. But you've got a set of tasks that's been assigned to you that you need to accomplish. And even though you've got your list, that's great. When you retire, that list isn't going to necessarily make you do those things, right?
Oh no, you've met my wife, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. You'll be poked and prodded. She might have been the one that made you make the list, possibly.
Right. She'll make the list for me.
But still, the list is there. Like you're going to need to make that choice though of how you're going to do
Right.
those things, and if you're going to do things, because
Yeah.
let's face it, there's a lot of people that probably retire, and maybe you hear this, Curt, on your podcast. There's probably a lot of guys that retire and they think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this other thing when I retire. But do they actually do it? Do they become comfortable? Do they enjoy not having to do anything, right, when they hit that stage of life? And suddenly, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week. And next thing you know, 5 years or 10 years have passed into retirement, and now they're not physically able to do those things that they wanted to.
Correct.
When they retire, right? They didn't have a plan.
Right. There's a couple of stories here. The first one I'm going to share with is a gentleman we had on. His name is John McDaniel. And we like to do this periodically. That's somebody that just retired. So they come on in. It's like, so what do you expect? What are you anticipating retirement to look like? Blah, 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 blah. What are you concerned about? Blah, 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 blah. And so we get his information and shares, and great stories. He wants to do this, wants to be involved with that, all those wonderful things. He did have ideas of things that he was going to be moving into. Everybody always says consistently, it's not, you have to retire to something, not from something, right? So you got to move into something else, right? So he had that all done. So it was a year later. We brought him into the podcast. Hey, John, you said this. Boom, played it for him. Did you do it? Not as much as I could have.
Yeah.
How about this one? Yeah, I'm doing that, just like you guys are talking. And his title of his episode was, "Hi, my name is John McDaniel. I've been retired for 1 year and I know how to hit curveballs." So we're like, so let's talk about curveballs. He goes, well, I had a little bit of a plan of what I was going to do, but I have a medical concern that I'm now coming out and talking about to people because they need to know. I'm going to have back surgery in the next 2 months. Oh, and by the way, my wife and I lost our house in a fire.
Oh.
And that happened in his first year of his retirement. Was that in his plan? No.
Yeah.
But to hear his story about how those curveballs that happened in that first year of retirement and what it did to him inside and made him better was something that you couldn't plan for. And he learned from it, and he was out of his comfort zone. And it's been a pain trying to work with contractors to have them rebuild the house. But he also recognized that when he saw his house and all the things in it that were just smoke damaged and burnt and has a big dumpster out, and he's looking at stuff and he goes, it's just stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the appreciation that you learn from that is you got to have a plan, and I'm Mr. Planner. I use something that we had at work called a strategic account plan, and I personalize it to myself, where you have a mission statement. Okay, what's my mission statement? To be present. What are the things that that's going to drive that mission? All right. Well, I want to have great relationship with my family. I want to be aware of things that are happening. I want to be spontaneous. Okay. Now, what are the key focus areas that I want to work on and rank them? Well, I'm going to stay true to my faith. I got to make sure that I'm healthy, because if I'm not healthy, I can't do anything else. I want to do things with my wife that were spontaneous because my work got in the way and couldn't have that happen. I want to do things with my youngest son, Alex, who's got some special needs, because we have to take care of things, help him for his future. And then I want to get involved with organizations. So then underneath that, I then said, well, what are going to be the drivers? What are the networking capabilities? And what are all the other adjacencies that I can tie into that? So then I took this one pager and created silos and then just brainstormed underneath everything. How am I going to improve my faith? What am I going to do with what organizations that are, faith driven, that I can help serve and help tell the story, the gospel message, and be that disciple. And I did it for each of the different sections, so that when I left my job, I had a working document that I could go and say, okay, I got to do this. I told myself I was going to do this. I'm going to go do this. So I did that. And you hear many times from people, once I retire, boy, I was so busy. I didn't know how I had time for work because I'm busier now than I've ever been.
Yeah. I hear that all the time. You know what else I hear, which is kind of sad? The number of retired guys that we invite to F3, they don't want to come because they don't want to wake up early. Now that they're retired, they don't want to wake up early to show up for the workouts because you got to wake up about 5 a.m. to do it. Anyway, so dial up. He's talking about planning. You said you're 9 years away, right? You're 53.
Yeah.
Goal is to retire when 62. Have you start planning at all?
Planning on how to be able to meet that goal of retiring at 62.
What planning have you done so far? Anything?
Yeah. So first, we work with our financial advisor to make sure that we're meeting certain goals along the way, that we're going to be able to retire when I'm 62, if I choose. I leave it up in the air that I might, at that point, maybe I'll want to work a little bit longer. Maybe we'll have some project going on that I want to see out. That's kind of just happening at that time. Or maybe I want to work part-time for a little while, just to kind of tuck a little bit more away to be able to kind of, do some extra little things in retirement. So yeah, that planning's going on. We meet with our advisor throughout the year, a couple times. And yeah, I've also got those ideas of things I'd like to do when I retire as well. I try not to think about it too much because, I don't know what life's necessarily going to look like 9 years from now. Things could change drastically as far as possibly, where we're living. I don't think that's going to change, but it could be where our kids are living. And do we have grandkids? And all those things that go along with it, because that's going to be a big part of it for us, is being able to spend as much time as we can, with our kids, hopefully grandkids by that point. And so it's a little hard to plan for that when they don't exist quite
You don't
yet.
know, right? Yeah.
Right. But there's certainly some volunteer things that I'd like to do, and, continue to grind with my F3 friends and stay fit, and well from, through, consistent exercise. So it's there. Got to kind of formulate it and narrow it down a little bit as we get closer to that time.
Yeah, don't worry. By the time you get there, I'll have started something else and dragged you along, and we'll
true.
do that.
That's true. Yeah. We'll be on episode, I don't know what, third, 1,000 and something by then.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to go back to you a little bit there, Dial Up, in the sense that you said you've given it some thought. You don't have a plan except for the finance part. You obviously got to think about the medical part too, because that's big. You know, how's that going to be covered? That's one thing that just continues to grow as you get older.
Got a plan there to bridge the gap with between 62 and Medicare.
Exactly. But another thing is that you mentioned things like, oh yeah, I'm going to volunteer, and oh, I'm going to get involved with, certain other activities. But I always ask people to sort of do an assessment of themselves. All right. So first of all, what are you don't have to answer this. These are the questions I ask. It's like, what are your interests and passions? What are some things that you did as a kid that you really enjoyed, but you had to put it on the shelf because you had to put on the big boy pants and go out and do work? What are some things that you had along life that you said, boy, I wish I would have done this? And then what are the skill sets that you've done in your career that you can pull forward? All right. And use that skill set, those concepts, to then go after these things. I like to make a comment that you like to do a test drive. So while I was working, I said, I want to pick up a side hustle, a little extra cash. So I want to do some fun work. What do I like to do? I'm energetic. I like to be physical. I want to be outside. I enjoy plants. And so I went to this local nursery, a big outlet up here in Cincinnati called Natorp's, and I bought a tree there, and I talked to this guy who was loading the tree up in my truck, and he's taking such great care of it. And I said, you like working here? And he goes, yeah. He says, the family's great. They take care of us. It's a great job. We're meeting all these people. You're outside. It's beautiful. Everybody comes in happy. I'm like, I said, who's the guy that works this department, the loader area? And he goes, that's Tom. I said, where is he? Points me to him. I go over and I said, hey, I'm thinking about leaving work down the road, but I was wondering, could I get a part-time job here on the weekend just to sort of kick the tires and sort of see what it's all about? And he says, sure. So I called him on up and got some things locked on in and started working there. And I'm doing that 3 days a week in the spring and in the fall. And it fills a lot of needs for me. I'm a people person. I want to be around people. That fits that bill right off the bat. I greet people as they come on in, welcome them to Natorp's, help them direct themselves within the 3-acre outlet to find plants that they can take home. We then help load their cars, and we make their experience so great. And then I'm also working behind the scenes and all this stuff. I have my role there, and I'm working with high school students to help them in their world and acceptance of things. So there was something that I knew I wanted to do something, but I went after it and I tried it and I kicked the tires.
Yep.
And it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Yeah. For me,
I think,
go ahead. I was going to say, one of the things that I would love to do is I would love to spend time as an assistant coach for cross country and track and field at the high school, middle school. Again, I don't want to be the head coach. I want to be the assistant coach, so I have some flexibility in my hours, but just to be able to show up and share wisdom, with the kids of what I've learned as a competitive runner all these years, and just to be a positive role model in maybe some kid's life that doesn't have it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't have a father figure that's helping them grow into becoming a man, right? And help them in that way. So,
yeah, I could see you doing that and being really successful and happy with that. So one of the things I'm hearing is, you gotta be involved in something because otherwise you get kind of sad and depressed and lonely, and retirement could be miserable.
Yep.
As exemplified by the statistics that we shared earlier that you sent us about the suicide rate of men over 70.
Yep.
The one of the ways to prevent all that is to be engaged in something so that your brain is working and your body is moving. So it's not just physical health. It's as far as your body, still physical, but your brain, you got to keep your brain engaged, even if it's working the job that you're talking about, Curt. So that keeps you engaged, keeps you talking to people, gets you meeting people. You're having conversations instead of sitting at home wondering what's next on Netflix or, whatever. So I want you to talk about the 5 emotional stages of retirement briefly, if you can.
Yeah, there are 5 stages in retirement that, as I say them, I think you're going to say like, oh yeah, makes sense. First of all, there's that pre-retirement phase. All right. Now that's the period of time, like you just described, dial up, that you're thinking about it. What are the ducks that I have to get in a row? I have to make sure that I have finances established. I have to make sure I'm going to get some medical coverage. I have to make sure that I'm living within my means. Because I've been, prior to this, myself, prior to leaving career, I was accumulating all my life. And now I'm decumulating.
Yeah.
And that's very alien to me. All right. So do I have a good budget? And I do all these things. What are the interests? What are the passions? We'll do a whiteboard exercise on all the dreams and aspirations and things that you want to do. So that's pre-retirement planning, where you're getting yourself prepared for that date. And the biggest thing, when it comes down to the wire, I had one person tell me, and it's so true. I said, how will I know when it's time? And they're like, you'll just know. You'll just know. There'll be this feeling inside like it's time. And then when that time comes, set a date so that you work towards that time. I'm going to be retiring in September 30th, 2030. That's my date. If, depending upon your work situation, let your management know and all that kind of stuff so that you have a nice, taking somebody and filling the bench and all that, have a nice transition. But you got to be disciplined to have an idea that I've got ducks in a row. I am moving towards this direction. And then as a result of that, I can start looking into other things because I know this date is coming because I've already set it. All right. So that's the pre-retirement stage. Then comes this honeymoon stage where all of a sudden you're experiencing these wonderful feelings of freedom. Hey, how was that Monday morning meeting? I don't have to be there anymore. Ha ha. I can do anything I want. I can go anywhere I want. This is the time where people go on trips and they play golf every day and they swim or they go fishing every day, and they're always going. They're having a honeymoon period of time. Some of these honeymoons can last 2 to 3 years. All right, depending upon the individual as well as their financial, capabilities. But there always comes a time where, how many times can I go around the world? How many golf courses can I play? What happens on a rainy day when I can't play golf or the fish aren't biting? What am I going to do? And that comes into this disenchantment stage where then all of a sudden the words are coming into play like, wow, I used to be so productive. I had hundreds of people reporting to me, and I used to make this much money, and I used to be able to do these things. And now all of a sudden, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing for the rest of my life? And that's that's a pivotal time. That's the mindset time right there, that you're going to have these down times. But then comes the point where you're down there and you're like, okay, it's time to move forward. It's time to do something different. It's time to jump out of this funk that I'm in and get into something. So let's decide what I'm going to get into and let's get after it heavily. And that becomes the reorientation phase, where then all of a sudden you're motivated. You got things that you're working towards. There's different routines in your life. Some people like to have a set schedule. On Monday, I'm going to do this. On Tuesday, I'm going to do that. Fine. Down to the actual activity. Myself is like, I want to do physical stuff every day, but it's not going to be going to the gym every day from 6 to 8. It's like, well, no, today I'm going to go chop wood. The next day I'm going to go ride my bike. but I'm doing things that are physical because that's what I want to do. But I'm mixing it up in a degree because I don't like routine. So I like to do all kinds of different things. So I'm re-engaging myself, reorienting myself to then be getting after it. Right. And then comes the point of stability. Now, when you first retire, these waves are going to be like this because it's a brand new thing. I've never, when my first week of retirement, and that's another part, I've sort of added this into it. The honeymoon stage right before that is sort of like the vacation stage, because when you're off for like the first 2 weeks, it just feels like a prolonged vacation.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden it lands in there like, well, wait a minute. No, this is going on and on. And now I'm in my honeymoon stage and doing things, but now the vacation's done. But these are so impactful in the first part of your retirement that then it starts to level out because you get a rhythm. But any time in life, as we all know, something can happen to you physically. And then all of a sudden, did you do preparing for it? Did you have, were you able to express yourself and how you're dealing with this change in your body, which could create a disenchantment? And what are you going to do to reorient yourself to get yourself back into a stable position? So you're going to have these different stages are going to happen throughout your retired life, but they won't be as dramatic potentially because it's such a disruption from what you did before. And I'm not saying there's a lot of medical things that can go into this. That is a big disruption. And I totally understand that, but that too is a part of it. It's a curveball. And are you going to let it beat you? Are you going to let it sit you down and say, I'm done. I can't do it anymore? That's when you got to be worried. That's where you need community. That's where you need your family and your spouse, if you have those, to encourage you and to sit down and talk, and even go talk to somebody. Because I'm going to be the first one to say, even though I do this podcast and I've done a lot of reading and I have my own plan and I have this great experiences with people that we've heard their stories, which are tremendous stories, I'm no expert.
Mhm.
I'm going through it every day. I'm a work in progress. And I have to admit, and I'm admitting, I'm a big producer. I need to have that acknowledgement. I need to have achievement. I need to make sure that, hey, I did something today.
Yeah.
But there's days where, I look in the backyard and I'm like, okay, there are no weeds in the garden because I got them all yesterday. The grass is cut. I cut it 4 times yesterday. The car is washed. I just, it's raining now, so I can't go play golf. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And it is hard for me, with the type of personality that I am, to sit down and read a book or to sit down and actually visit with somebody, or guess what? Even take a nap.
Yeah. Well, here's some ideas. I thank you for sharing all that. First of all, naps are good. But second of all, I have some downtime during my schedule because the last 2 weeks I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I have Monday through Thursday off, and my wife's at work. I'm home alone, and I have a to-do list of things I got to get done that I want to get done around the house. Today I swept the floors and I mopped the floors and I cleaned up the kitchen and I cooked dinner. My wife's coming home any minute. She'll have dinner ready for her. But anyway, there's still a lot of downtime. And I worked out, I ran this morning, I went to all that stuff, still got hours of downtime. So I watched a special on Prime about guys rowing across the Atlantic. Dial up, I'll tell you about that later. So but frequently what I do then is I start thinking of men or people that maybe I should give somebody a call. And either somebody I haven't talked to in a while, somebody that the Holy Spirit has laid on my heart. And I just start calling people. Not everybody's able to talk and able to answer. But I talked to Dial Up today. I talked to 2 other guys from our F3 group. I talked to my daughter today, and I talked to another friend of mine who I called out of the blue, and he called me back. Oh, and I talked to my best friend from high school because his dad just passed away. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage guys, you don't have to be retired to do this, but that's a really good way to spend your downtime. Call people. The texting is whatever, but calling people and talking to them is, I don't know. I think I would love to get a call once in a while from a friend of mine like, hey, how you doing? Just checking up on you. That'd be really cool, right?
Yeah.
Just another thought of things that you could do with your time. I remember stories of older ladies. I heard that, I think our pastor shared that, and they write letters to prisoners. You got this 80-year-old lady who's basically can't leave her house very much at all, but she's finding purpose in life because she's writing letters to prisoners and telling them about the Lord, but just loving on them like a grandma would, right? Sending them cookies or whatever. I mean, there's always something you could do. All right, I got a question for you though, Curt. You're retired. Did you have a retirement party?
Did I have a retirement party? I had one with people that I worked with. They invited me out to dinner in Pittsburgh, and that was a very nice event. Very quiet, low profile. Family wise, we got together and had a nice dinner here at the house, but no, nothing real big pomp and circumstance. I'm not that kind of guy. Don't need to be about me type of thing. I didn't really need that. It's a wonderful feeling to have the freedom to make choices and do things. And, I was sort of talking about my schedule and how I packed things in. I got to a point where then I was back into the routine of just following my calendar as opposed to even though I loved everything I did for what I did it, but it still became another thing to do. And I had to pull myself back to say, no, you just got to be. And that's why we did this one episode on being versus doing. We're human beings. We're not human doings.
Yeah. I hear you. And alone time with God is worth a lot. We should do that every day.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, God is in front of this thing. He placed this thing in my heart to help people. Like I was looking for help, and what I can do is what my person is all about at retirement. And I started going at one person at a time. And the first gentleman that I met was Dale Tesmond. And he's one of our co-hosts. And I explained to him what I was doing, and he was about to retire. He says, I think you got something here. Let's talk about this, and maybe we can do something. He's like, okay. So I gave him all this stuff, and he looked at it. And then this other guy came by, Adam Columba, who's another co-host. And he talked to me about what's going on in his life, and I asked him what's going on, and he asked me what's going on in my life, and I explained this redirect thing. He goes, wow. Never really heard much about that. He says, I'm 54 years old, 53 years old. This could be something I might need to know about. If you need any help, let's do it. So Dale, Adam, and I got together, sat on Dale's deck, and started talking about how we can go out and have conversations with guys, one person at a time, to help them in this transition of redirection. And as I said, one person at a time, that's all I was saying. If that worked, we're successful. It's great. I'm helping one person at a time. And he goes, you know what, Curt? He says, we would have conversations about all kinds of things between the three of us. And then Dale says, we need to do a podcast. And I'm like, a podcast? And I said, I listen to podcasts. I said, how do you do a podcast? So here we had the conversation in August 24. In February of 25, we launched our first podcast. So here I was talking about me and my little comfort zone of what I was when I was a sales rep and sales manager and doing all that stuff. And I jumped out of that and I landed into this pond of redirection. Now, all of a sudden, I'm learning about podcasts, Riverside FM, social media, Instagram, editing, content, finding guests, developing stories, developing a theme, going to events that wasn't even any part of my mind 5 years ago. And that's the point of men are productive, women are too, but we shouldn't stop when they say it's over. It's not about what we did. It's what we're going to do. There's a book out there called From Strength to Strength. And that is by, let me find it here real quick, Arthur Brooks. And he talks about that the ages from 60 and up are the biggest years of your life in order to give back. Your experiences, your knowledge. You are a source and a resource to so many people, mentoring, helping people, getting involved and learning from the younger people. We talk about our friends and talking to them. It's also important to have younger friends because your older friends and your age friends may be dying, and then all of a sudden you're alone again.
Mhm.
Get a younger friend. And there's a thing called reverse mentoring, where we can mentor younger people, but now younger people can mentor us by sharing what they're bringing to me or bringing to us. Hey, I'm a boomer and I'm proud of it. And I like life as it was back when, to a degree, sometimes too much. And I don't understand all this stuff that's going on in today's world and how fast the world is moving. And I don't even know if I could survive it, because I'm not this culture, right? I'm not this generation. But a younger generation, if I invite them into my world to help me from them move forward, and then by that, I can then give back to them on some experiential thing. We're helping one another.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to do as we get into this retirement or this retirement part of our life, or as we like to call it, our next 30. Because realistically, as I said earlier, I'm 69. Average age of retirement is 65. And average death rate or death expectancy is 82 years old. I've got 15 years.
Mhm.
I got 15 years. And I'm 69 now, and God willing, physically I stay fine. Mentally, I stay fine. But that's only going to be diminishing. And there's a lot of, those later years in life where you're just there because
Yeah.
that's all you can do. So why start that process early? Why sit back and not engage yourself and not try new things or not call friends? Because you never know where those conversations are going to go. All of a sudden, what you thought was just an innocent, casual meeting of somebody at Glacier Mountain or Glacier National Park is now a podcast that is talking about an issue that is very real, that everyone's going to experience. And who knows the people that we're touching through your podcast on this?
Amen. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to have the world's biggest retirement party. It's going to be enormous. And everybody get comfortable. We're going to get comfortable because I'm going to give the longest retirement speech ever. That's going to be my retirement party, baby. So bring a cushion dial up. You're going to need one.
All right. It's all good.
Do it. Do it.
You're good.
Do it.
At least you're a good speaker. So
Oh, I got lots of stories.
It might be long, but it will be quality content.
It'll go by quickly. It'll go by so quickly.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so many people I have to thank that, and I actually been thinking about this. So many people so there are no coincidences, right? You said earlier, God is sovereign, and He is sovereign. And so there's so many points along the way in my life that led to my career and how I grew throughout my career and the people that I met and how I came to the Lord during meeting somebody in my career, in my marriage, and everything else that I got a lot of people to shout out to and give thanks to who helped me along the way. So anyway, got 2 questions we're going to get you out of here on. Dial up. Do you have any other questions before I ask them?
I'm good. I still can't help but think though, like this has been a great episode. A lot of components of F3.
Yeah.
Why we do F3 and why F3 is reaching men the way that it is tied into this. So one, we gotta get you connected to the F3 Cincinnati area guy in some way.
All right.
Out to a beatdown for sure.
I would love that.
We'll send you the link to the map, and you can kind of look around, find your house, and find what's close to you. But it's just hard to believe that this all just came about from you guys crossing paths, out in Glacier National Park. So,
well,
like you
God
said,
is sovereign.
God is good. God's got a plan, and there are no coincidences.
That's right.
None at all.
In life. So
None at all.
very
Amen,
cool,
brother. All right. So the first question is, if you were to pick somebody that's your inspiration, your hero, anybody, it could be anybody, who would you pick?
Well, it's not Sunday, and I'm still going to say Jesus Christ. I mean, that to me is, I mentioned this to my wife because I know you do this on the show. And she says, you can't say Jesus Christ because everybody's going to say Jesus Christ. And I said, okay, how about Paul the Apostle? He's a good one too.
Both are good. Actually, there's only been, I think, 2 people that said Jesus. I think I was asked once and I said Jesus, and there might have been 1 or 2 other guys. So no, not everybody says that.
Yeah. A lot of people mentioned it just like you did, right? Oh, well, Sunday school answer is right.
Yeah, but that's sincere. I mean,
Jesus,
I'm nothing. And the more that I learn about the gospel and about Christ, the less I am.
Okay. I agree, man.
And it's just, that's, so that is the number one. There's no doubt about it. And then there's one other person I want to throw in here, and that's my son, Alex. You heard me say earlier that I have a brother who's got some intellectual disabilities, and that was the reason why I got into the special education degree and a master's degree and such. I said one time, because I felt guilty that I couldn't really give the services to my brother because I was away from him, and times were different. He grew up in a much different time than other things. And I said, God, if I ever had the chance to do it over again, I'd do a better job. And lo and behold, after that, my youngest son was born, Alex, who's got intellectual disabilities and a mild form of cerebral palsy. And talk about a guy that can just melt you when you're having a bad day. And you look at him and he says, you know what, Dad, I love my life.
Wow.
Whew.
Yeah.
Brings tears to your eyes. It puts everything in proper perspective.
Yeah.
It's just stuff.
Amen.
That's it right there. So Jesus, number one, obviously, and Alex, my youngest son, is a huge inspiration for me because he's overcome a lot of a lot of difficult challenges. He's got challenges for the rest of his life, which we're trying to work with him and help him in his independence. But he loves his life, and he brings a smile to every room and every person. And there's so many people that he's touched because of who he is. That you could write books about.
Yeah, I hear that. We hear that a lot about people who have children like that. That's great, man.
Yeah,
all right, last thing is, this is your chance to give a message to all the men out there. What would your brief message be to inspire the guys?
My brief message is that what we're trying to do on the Redirect podcast is create an awareness. And to make you aware that a time is coming that you have to prepare for. Number one, if you're in it, it's time to take a look at what you're doing. All right. You have to connect with someone. You have to build a community that you were talking about beforehand, people around you that you can go to. That stat that we only have 1.5 friends where we used to have 3, you really should have 7. Because as I said, younger and old, you have to have a connection and community that creates belonging to prevent isolation. Transition is hard. And what we think is we're moving into a redirection in our life, let it be a career or let it be something else in our life, midlife or whatever. It seems unique to you, but it's really not unique at all. Just find someone else that you can talk to. And that's one thing that guys have to work on, is to sort of open up and let them know that, hey, I got a question, or hey, I'm not feeling good. And can you get together with me and have a cup of coffee because I need to bounce some things off you? So It's not unique. And then also remember that we're a work in progress. There is no solution to a retirement because every day is different and you don't know what the next day is going to bring. So you got to embrace today and do everything you possibly can in order to give your best in everything and find something that motivates you. And what's great is that after a while, if that season is done, well, do something else.
Do something else.
So do something else. And, I hope your listeners, if you get into podcasts, which I know you do because they're listening to you guys, we have a similar format. We love hearing people's stories. Thank you for letting me come on to share my story. I hope that your listeners found it engaging. And if your listeners want to follow the Redirect podcast, we're found on Apple, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be found. It's called The Redirect Podcast. Our website is www.redirect-u.com. And if you want to send us an email, you have a story you want to share and want to be on our show, email us at info@redirect-u.com.
All right.
I thank you guys. I thank you for allowing me to come on, and I appreciate you guys, and thanks.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure. It was an honor to have you on. Appreciate your time. Appreciate what you're doing. I have listened to about 3 different episodes that you guys had. I'll probably keep listening to it. So, especially since I'm in the pre-planning stages here, stage number 1. So yeah, so I
2
really
more
appreciate
years.
your time, brother. So God bless you.
You got it. Thanks. Have a great day.
Take
You
care.
too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I would like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their story of becoming a high-impact man. More information and resources can be found at highimpactman.com. If you like this podcast, please consider following us on our social media pages or email us at him@highimpactman.com. That is HIM@highimpactman.com. The High Impact Man podcast has a new episode every week, and you can find them on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast platforms. Have a great week, everyone.